Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Let us begin our tafsir on Surah Al-Maa'idah. Al-Maa'idah means a dinner table. This surah, the fifth one of the Quran, is a Madaniyah surah, which means it was revealed after the Prophet ﷺ made hijrah. So it's not about where the ayat are revealed, it's about when. It is similar to Surah An-Nisa in that much does it deal with rules and regulations, because primarily it is directed towards the Muslims in Al-Madinah. We have an authentic narration from Aisha radiallahu anha, who says that Surah Al-Maa'idah was the last of the surah to be revealed. So whatever in it is halal, take it as halal. Whatever in it you find haram, take it as haram. And then she was asked what was the character of the Prophet, and she said his character was the Quran. Sheikh Shu'aib al-Arnaout graded this narration to be sahih. Let's take a look at this first ayah. قال الله تعالى يا أيها الذين آمنوا أوفوا بالعقود أحلت لكم بهيمة الأنعام إلا ما يتلى عليكم غير محلي الصيد وأنتم حرم إن الله يحكم ما يريد. So he begins the ayah with the famous call, O you who believe. So this means whatever is going to come after it is going to test your iman. And he begins with an order, awfu, from the verb awfa yufi ifa'an, to fulfill. Bil uqud, fulfill your contracts. Now broadly there are two types of contracts. One which you have with Allah, so that is His obedience. And the other one you have with other people. So these are mainly financial contracts. You have to fulfill your contracts. And not doing so is a deficiency in your iman. He says, أُحِلَّتْ لَكُمْ, made halal for you, from أَحَلَّ يُحِلُّ إِحْلَالًا, to make halal. بَهِيمَةُ الْأَنْعَامِ, bahima meaning beast, but not just any old beast, the beast of the an'am. So these are a group of animals from the families of the camel, cows and sheep. So as for the cows, we're talking about the bovine animals. So this includes the buffaloes and other types of animals which are from the cow family. And as for the sheep, this includes the goats as well. The goat is a ma'iz. So when he says they are halal for you, it means obviously from the context halal to eat after you have slaughtered them properly. And also their skin and fur and other body parts can be made use of as well. He says, إِلَّا مَا يُتْلَى عَلَيْكُمْ, except that which is recited to you. So this refers to the upcoming ayat which are going to speak about certain types of animals which are haram for you to consume. And then he makes another exception, a second one, when he says غَيْرَ, meaning other than, muhilli, making halal, so it is the active participle of ahalla. غَيْرَ muhilli, so other than making halal for yourselves. As-sayd, these are the game animals which you hunt. And these are by nature, of course, wild animals. So animals who are not in your possession. So you hunt them with your arrows, and nowadays, of course, with your guns. So these game animals are not halal for you to hunt nor eat. وَأَنْتُمْ حُرُمْ, whilst you are hurum. This means in a state of ihram. It's the plural. State of ihram meaning when you are performing the hajj or the umrah. It also means if you are not performing the hajj and the umrah, but you are in the haram of Makkah, and indeed Medina as well. So it is not halal to hunt the game animals of the haram, regardless of whether you're performing the hajj or the umrah or not. And then he says, indeed Allah judges that to which He wants to. So reflecting on this ayah, we take the prestigious nature of iman. Notice how Allah Jalla wa Ala calls you with your most prestigious attribute, which is iman, that you're a mu'min. It is the best attribute of any human being. We also take the obligation of fulfilling your contracts, because if you do not, you would be a treacherous person. And treacherous people will be humiliated on Yawm al-Qiyamah, when the whole world finds out that this is a treacherous person. But of course, when we say fulfill your contract, it obviously means the halal contracts. The haram contracts are not to be fulfilled if you can help it. And conditions are also included in this order. So if the contract has some conditions stipulated, then in order to honor the contract, you have to honor the conditions. And so therefore, honouring the conditions are also obligatory, because the contract cannot be honoured without the conditions. We also take that from the mercy of Allah Jalla wa Ala is that He has made the Bahimatul An'am halal for us to consume and to make use of. We also learn that it is haram to hunt game animals in the state of ihram and when you are in the land of the haram as well, be it in Mecca or Medina. And if one were to hunt the game animal in this state, then it would not be halal to be eaten. So it would be treated as dead meat, not allowed to be eaten by anyone. One may ask, why is the game animal not allowed when you're in the state of ihram? And the answer is, this is what Allah Jalla wa Ala has judged. He has made certain things haram for us, and hunting game animal is one of them. As for in the haram is a sacred place, and certain things are haram which ordinarily in other places would be halal. And this is what it means to be haram or in the state of ihram. Certain things are restricted. There are certain boundaries you're not allowed to step over. Just like when you're in a state of salah or siyam, there are certain things you're not allowed to do because it is a sacred state. And this is all out of ta'zeem, veneration for that particular state, whether it be salah or siyam or the ihram or in the land of the haram. It's all a ta'zeem, a veneration of it. And we also take that Allah judges or commands you with whatever He wants. Now, whatever He wants is not just based on some kind of dip that He takes, rather it is based on wisdom and knowledge. So even if it may not be clear to us, it is, however, clear to us that Allah Jalla wa Ala has knowledge and wisdom, and He judges in accordance with that, and not just some sort of haphazard rules. We also take that irada is one of His attributes. And of course you can have irada kawniya and irada shar'iyya, which we have spoken about in other places. Ayah number 2. Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu la tuhillu sha'aira Allahi wala ash-shahra al-harama wala al-hadiya wala al-qala'ida wala amina al-bayta al-harama yabtaghuna فضلا من ربهم ورضوانا وإذا حللتم فاصطادوا ولا يجرمنكم شنآن قوم أن صدوكم عن المسجد الحرام أن تعتدوا وتعاونوا على البر والتقوى ولا تعاونوا على الإثم والعدوان واتقوا الله إن الله شديد العقاب. So again in this ayah it begins with the famous call, and in this case it is a prohibition. لا تحلوا, do not make halal, sha'air of Allah. Sha'air is the plural of sha'iratun, which means an emblem or a symbol. But in this context what it means is do not violate the orders and prohibitions of Allah. These are the emblems of Allah, His orders and prohibitions. Do not violate them. He says, وَلَا الشَّهْرُ الْحَرَامِ, and neither do you violate the sacred month. Ash-shahr is well known. It's when the hilal is sighted up until when the next new hilal is sighted. So this is the lunar month, of course. Al-haram meaning sacred and something which is not to be violated. These are 4 months which are well known: Dhul Qa'dah, Dhul Hijjah and Muharram. These are 3 consecutive months. And then you have Rajab. So this means to say do not fight in the sacred months. You have to honor these sacred months. So as for the Dhul Qa'dah, Dhul Hijjah and Muharram, these are for the Hajj. As people come to the Hajj or Umrah and leave, that is likely to be in the Muharram time, they need to be in safety, so no one is allowed to fight. It was like a contract amongst the Arab, even before Islam. As for Rajab, which is the 7th month, this is so people can make Umrah in peace. So Islam came and upheld this rule, as it is in the interest of the Muslim that there should be peace during the times of the Hajj. And then he says, وَلَا الْهَدِيَ, and do not violate the hadi as well. The hadi is from the Bahimatul An'am, which when one is visiting the Kaaba by Umrah or Hajj, they would take along this sacrificial animal from the Bahimatul An'am to be sacrificed in the Haram, and the meat distributed to the poor people of the Haram. During his Hajj, the Prophet ﷺ sacrificed 63 animals. So Hadi means a gift. It is a gift that you dedicate to the Haram area, and it is an act of ibadah. And he says, وَلَا الْقَلَائِدَ, and neither the necklace or the garland. So this would be something like a shoe which they would hang around the neck of the hadi, of the sacrificial animal. Now why would they do that? So that other people may know that this is a sacrificial animal and you are not allowed to touch it. It is sacred because it is dedicated to the Haram and not just for public consumption. The mushrikun used to do this even before Al-Islam, but Islam upheld this practice because it is a good practice and it is beneficial. So anything which is beneficial, even if it was practiced in the days of Jahiliyyah, Al-Islam upholds it. And he also mentions, do not violate the Amin. This comes from the same word as tayammum, which means qasd, to intend. So these people are intending the Al-Baytul Haram, which is the Kaaba. So this is the people going for the Umrah or the Hajj. They are yabtaghuna, seeking the fadl from their Rabb. This refers to the profits that they would make during the Hajj season because everyone is gathered together and it is a good opportunity for selling your merchandise. And Ridwana, the pleasure of Allah when you perform the Hajj or the Umrah. Then he says, وَإِذَا حَلَلْتُمْ, when you become halal, meaning when you release from the ihram, فَاصْطَادُوا, from istada yastadu istiyadan, to hunt, then you may hunt. The order form is given, but it actually denotes permissibility, because before the prohibition, hunting was permissible, so then after the prohibition, hunting is still permissible. It takes the same ruling as it was before the prohibition. Then he says, do not let your shana'an, which means your hatred of a people. Your hatred of a people, what people? The mushrikeen. He's telling the Muslimin, do not let your hatred for the mushrikeen. Why do they hate the mushrikeen? أَنْ صَدُّوكُمْ عَنِ الْمَسْجِدِ الْحَرَامِ, because they prevented you from entering the Al-Masjid al-Haram. And this refers to the famous case of Al-Hudaybiyah, when the Muslims were prevented from making the Umrah. So because of this, obviously the Muslims were harboring a great hatred for the mushrikeen. But Allah is saying that this hatred, do not let it cause you, يَجْرِمَنَّكُمْ أي يَحْمِلَنَّكُمْ, do not let it cause you to transgress. And ta'tadu, from i'tida, to transgress. Transgress how? Do not plunder the wealth of the mushrikeen and do not kill them. This would be a transgression. So what this means is that if you see the kuffar performing the Hajj and they're in the state of ihram, do not attack them. Do not say, well, they are kuffar, they wronged us, we are going to take revenge. No, this is not permissible for you, because they're in the state of ihram, and it is not permissible to attack people in the state of ihram, nor their hadi. Rather, there is a time and a place for fighting. But then, how do we explain the fact that they are seeking the ridwan, the pleasure of Allah? Well, of course, the kuffar do not have the pleasure of Allah, but in their belief, they believe they are seeking the pleasure of Allah. As for when Muslims perform the Hajj or the Umrah, then of course, yes, they are seeking the pleasure of Allah and they will attain the pleasure of Allah. And then he says, وَتَعَاوَنُوا, this is to help each other, from aun, which means to help. So ta'awana, yata'awanu, ta'awunan, to help each other. Ala, help each other with. Al-bir and taqwa. Now al-bir and taqwa both mean righteousness. However, when put together, al-bir means proactively doing that which is ordered and ordained, and taqwa would be to refrain from the prohibitions. And he says, وَلَا تَعَاوَنُوا, do not help each other on al-ithim and al-udwan. So ithim would be a sin, but this would not be a sin where others are harmed. So for example, if a person commits kufr, he is only harming himself. But udwan is transgression against other people. So this would be hitting them, killing them, usurping their wealth and so on. It's a transgression when you step over the line and harm someone else. So we are not to help each other in these matters. And then he says, have taqwa of Allah. Indeed, Allah is shadeed, severe in iqab, punishment. So of course this is a threat for those who do not have taqwa of Allah Jalla wa Ala. In the tafsir of Ibn Jarir al-Tabari, it mentions that this ayah was revealed concerning a man called Al-Hutam ibn Hind al-Bakri, who had raided some cattle belonging to the Muslims of Medina. And of course the Muslims were after him. The next year they found him going to perform the Umrah in a state of Ihram. And of course they wanted to kill him. And this ayah came down to stop them, to not to harm anyone intending the house of Allah. However, it is said that this rule was then abrogated by the ayah of Surah At-Tawbah, which orders the Muslimin to kill the mushrikeen who are at war with the Muslimin wherever you find them. Wallahu a'lam. Anyway, reflecting on this ayah, we find in this ayah that Allah Jalla wa Ala tells us not to violate certain matters. First of all, Sha'airillah, we said all the things which are prohibited, these are the red lines not to be crossed. The sacred months are not to be violated. This means, of course, no fighting, but they also say no sins as well. Or at least the sins in these months are worse than sins in other months. Now some scholars have claimed that this rule about not fighting in the sacred months is abrogated because the Prophet fought in the sacred months. The Battle of Tabuk, for example, even though there wasn't a battle but they went out for a battle, was in Muharram. And he fought Banu Hawazin and another tribe of Thaqif in Dhul Qa'dah after he conquered Mecca in Ramadan. But what is correct in this matter is that no, the sacred months are not abrogated. They are in effect today. As for fighting in the sacred months, then it is permissible as a defense only, not as an initiation. It is also permissible if the fight or the military expedition spills over in the sacred month. For example, you start the fight in Shawwal, but the fighting does not end in Shawwal. It continues on to the next month, which is Dhul Qa'dah. That is permissible because this is a continuation, not an initiation. And like we say, al-istidama aqwa min al-ibtida'. The Prophet ﷺ clearly stated that the time has returned to the same as it was when Allah created the heavens and the earth. So the sacred months have returned to their actual position after the mushrikeen would delay the sacred months. And he said that the year is 12 months, 4 of them are haram, and he mentions them: Dhul Qa'dah, Dhul Hijjah, and Muharram. These are 3 in a row. And then he says that the Rajab of the tribe of Mudar, because they would venerate this month and not delay it or take it out of its proper position. And he said this during the farewell Hajj, which was the 10th Hijri, the very last full year of the Prophet's life, because he died in the 11th year. So this rule is definitely not abrogated, because the battle of Hawazin and Thaqif was in the 8th year, and the Prophet is saying this hadith in the Sahihain in the 10th year. We find the sanctity of the Hadi and the Qala'id. We also take that performing the Hajj and the Umrah with the intention of making use of the great opportunity for trade is actually permissible. But your intention to perform the Hajj or the Umrah needs to be for Allah Jalla wa Ala alone. But along with that, if you have the intention of making use of the trade opportunity, then there is nothing wrong with that. We of course take that hunting game animals are haram in the state of Ihram, but you are allowed to do so after Ihram. We take from this ayah a vital lesson that the believer is disciplined. So even if he hates somebody who has wronged him, you're still not allowed to transgress against that person. So if such a person, for example, has wronged you, and then thereafter you find him in the state of Ihram performing the Hajj or the Umrah, you're not allowed to transgress against such people. Because anyone performing the Hajj or the Umrah must be left in peace. That is the whole point of the sacred months. Sure, if someone does wrong to you or harms you or injures you, you can take revenge against them. That is not transgression. Transgression would be more like if you were to take revenge against that particular person and also his wife and children. That would be transgression. We also take the obligation of helping each other in righteous actions and not helping each other in evil actions. Indeed, advising each other against it. And as for examples for this, they can go on and on, but the principle is easy enough to understand. We also take the obligation of having taqwa of Allah Jalla wa Ala, and we also learn that Allah is severe in His torment, and that this is a threat to all those who fail to observe taqwa of Allah. هذا والله أعلم.